All right, guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And because we know you can't go another day without a Snow White video, we're going to bring you another Snow White. We're going to bring you another damn Snow White video. We're going to talk about the fallout from Snow White. In this case, there is an alleged Disney insider who talked to the Daily Mail, I guess, and said that they're doing a purge of woke, quote unquote, woke content in Hollywood currently, which actually does track. I mean, if you look at the stuff that's getting walked back, you look at the stuff that's getting canceled, you look at the projects that are not performing. Yeah, studios they're afraid. They're afraid.
Mm-hmm. I'm 100% sure this is true.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, you'll get a woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
And yeah, we've been covering this because that's the one constant that we've seen. Like every time they announce they're canceling stuff in Hollywood, streaming shows or movies or pivoting or whatever, dumping people or canceling their deals, 9 times out of 10, it is like Tumblr fanfic looking stuff that they're getting rid of.
Well, yeah, because it doesn't perform.
No, people are over it. And I think the stuff that you're seeing now that's coming out, like Snow White, they're flushing it out of the system. Like it's too far along in the production pipeline, but they got to get rid of it. But I think 2 to 3 years from now, you're going to see a lot different content.
It's like when you're sick and you have a stomach virus, and until you puke it and poop it all out, you don't feel better. So
we have to poop and puke out all the Rachel Zegler content. But no, I mean, we saw so much backlash. We saw, declining box office returns, and, Marvel, they're kind of in panic mode over there too. Very telling. They weren't announcing a lot of people, including the Marvels, for Doomsday, although I'm sure they'll show up at some point in time. But yeah, they're getting rid of it. So this is originally coming from Bleeding Fool, but they went out to the Daily Mail article, so I wanted to give them a hat tip. But Mail Plus exclusive. That's what they call me, is Mail Plus.
No one calls you that.
Nobody does. I call myself.
I love you, but no one calls you that.
That's if I go full Andrew Tate. I'm not going to call myself an alpha. I'll just call myself Mail Plus.
There you go.
There we go.
Everything's plus.
Everything is plus. Rachel Zegler's Snow White flop sparks anti-woke U-turn. Hollywood whistleblowers reveal how trans actors in liberal films are being dumped in crisis mode panic. Well, they did the woke, and now they're doing the broke, I guess. I mean, look, it sounds cliche. It sounds very cliche, but there is a pattern, right? You pander to a very small group of people, and a very small group of people support your products.
Pretty much. And it's like, just make movies that appeal to more people.
Yeah.
That, make movies like they used to. That doesn't mean you can't have diversity and inclusion. Not at all. They did it for decades. People still went to see them. It's because you're picking shitty things, and Disney stopped the live action remakes.
So they're talking about how just comically awful the Snow White debacle has been. And they're talking about the angry little people protests and all this stuff that's happened. But they said that there's terror gripping Tinseltown, and there's no one coming to rouse them from their nightmare either, because there's no prince in Snow White. So more than a dozen. Oh, it wasn't just one. More than a dozen Hollywood insiders, ranging from an Oscar-nominated producer to the writer of one of the most successful TV shows ever, have spoken exclusively to the Daily Mail about an industry in crisis mode.
Yeah, well, what'd they say?
Any guesses? Any guesses as to who? It's probably Jerry Seinfeld's probably one of them, or Larry David. I'm guessing. Larry David's been kind of outspoken about this stuff lately. Yeah. Well, they jumped him about choking Elmo. I mean, what kind of a world do we live in where you can't choke a puppet on live TV? It's ridiculous.
Anyway.
They said when the Me Too movement and the George Floyd protest happened, every studio in town jumped on the woke bandwagon, a Disney insider says. 5 years later, everyone is desperately trying to save themselves in Hollywood. You can't underestimate the fear behind closed doors. This feels like a battle for survival.
So this is coming from a Disney person.
That's a Disney person, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised because, they did everything. Well, they used the protests, I believe, to get the Splash Mountain re-theme pushed through. They've been trying to get through. People argued. No, they were trying to get that through for years. It was a rumor for years. And then, everybody went really too far on it. And then ended up exactly like we said it was. Because if you swing one side or the other too far, it's going to blow up in your face, and that's what it did. And now they're like, oh, we made a bunch of dumb decisions. We listened to the wrong people, and now it's biting us in the ass. So now we have to course correct. But how do you do it? You have to do it behind closed doors, because if you say it publicly, they're going to label you a bigot.
Well, yeah, we saw how that worked out for them, right? With they wound up losing Reedy Creek over that whole debacle, because they couldn't make anybody happy.
Yeah, but you have to say it behind closed doors, because one, they don't want everybody to know about it, but two, that if they pivot back to profit and they do what audiences want, they're going to be called names. They're going to be labeled bigots, racists, et cetera, because these people wanted to control everything.
Wouldn't it have been hilarious if Bob Iger went to the presidential inauguration and stood next to Elon Musk and chuckled?
He wouldn't have. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they're buddies anytime soon. That would have been funny.
Like, oh my God, he's friends with Elon now. Yeah.
That doesn't even make sense. Like, well, okay.
No, because it's like all these people that were like anti-Trump before going to the inauguration.
Yeah, not him.
Chuckling together.
Not around Elon Musk. Elon Musk told him to go F himself publicly.
Yeah, but now they're advertising on X, aren't they?
Yeah, but they have to. But that doesn't mean they're great buddies. Anyway, at the House of Mouse, a disastrous box office failure of $270 million Snow White reboot, which I still think might be more, earned a $43 million opening weekend, was the final nail in the coffin of wokeism.
According to The Insider.
Right,
yes.
According to them. But everybody could have told them this. It's not just us. A lot of people were telling them, bad idea, bad idea, bad idea. And they just would not listen. But I do think they kind of noticed, because they got rid of a live action guy. They're still doing live action remakes, but the guy who kept really, spearheading it got, bumped down.
Well, yeah, I mean, they got rid of him because they knew that this, and look at what they're green. Like, Lilo and Stitch admittedly looks good. Maybe Moana will be okay, but he was making some really bad choices, and it's bitten them in the ass. And they're flushing this stuff out of the system. They can't just. I mean, I guess they could pull Warner Brothers and just not release it and take the right down, but I think at this point they're like, yeah, we have toy manufacturers involved now. We got this involved, and we got all stuff, kind of. So we got to release it. We're just going to get it out of the way, make it look like we tried. Okay, yada, yada, yada. Now we're moving on. And that's what it feels like with Marvel, too. They're like, yada, 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 get, Captain America 4 and Thunderbolts out of the way. And then we're going to get to the Fantastic Four, and then we're going to do Secret Wars. And people are going to try to bring people back for that. Star Wars is a lost cause at this point. Like,
well, if you skip down here, they're talking about some of the controversies around Ziegler, which we've talked about at length. There's no point talking about it again. But they do say that recounting meetings with snobbish Hollywood executives over the past several years, an Oscar-nominated producer tells the Daily Mail how he'd hear people dismissing the flyover states, those in middle America adding, duh, those people are the ones who watch our shows and go to the movies.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's very obvious this year, and that's what they were talking about, like with Twisters and all this like lowbrow humor. It's like these people make up the bulk of your audience,
right? And then they're always dismissing them. And they said this year, he cited this year's Oscars had the lowest ratings ever because there were movies no one cares about, and a big part of it was because they had those initiatives, the DEI requirements. So a lot of films that should have been nominated didn't get nominated.
Well, and he brings this up too, and that's the problem with the nomination criteria now for Best Picture for the Academy Awards. The Godfather and Casablanca wouldn't have gotten nominated, right? There's several classic movies that you cannot stress how classic these movies are. Wizard of Oz, probably, even it was probably too white. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, it's like you really got to look at, like, I'm all for including more diverse voices in nominations, whatever, but shouldn't exclude any group.
It should be voted on, and people should be nominated based on actual talent. Yeah. Not on, I was in this movie that was very far left. It should be just based on, was the movie good? Did people like it? Did the actors do a really good performance? It shouldn't matter whether they're, whatever color they are or whatever gender they are. Yeah. As long as they did a really great job, that's all you should really worry about.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's how it used to be, right? I mean, but they said, instead you have films like Amelia Perez about a cartel boss who transitions that appeal to no one except a handful of ultra left liberals and got all kinds of nominations, but didn't win a lot. But yeah, they loved her until they didn't, because she said some stuff on social media that did not fit the zeitgeist of the time in Hollywood. Let's just put it that way, right? And then they tried to kind of blacklist her, but that was a very confusing. That was kind of like we ran into this situation with Caitlyn Jenner too. It's like, oh, they love Caitlyn Jenner. Oh, she's a Republican. Yeah.
Oh, she said that they shouldn't, but that, biological men shouldn't be in women's sports.
Yeah. Well, we don't love Caitlyn as much as we
pretty much
did last week. How dare you? You're supposed to be the chosen one. How very dare you? Yeah, but they said Hollywood became so confused over identity politics that it turned on itself because insiders say the industry never held any true values.
No.
What?
And they said studios thought going woke would attract new younger audiences and make them money, but all it did was piss everyone off, which was what we told you was going to happen. It's almost like, we're right. You should just paid us. An insider at Amazon's Prime Video streaming division told the Daily Mail that this was never about genuinely helping minorities. For most studio executives, DEI was another way to make money, and it backfired, and everyone is scrambling to change direction. Yes. And all it did was create resentment. Kind of like the DEI stuff, all it did was drum up more bigotry and divisiveness because of it.
So this next part, though, this sounds very familiar. If you're
it sounds very familiar.
If you've been following us for a long time, and we talk about the animation industry. So the new regime created a lot of resentment. One woman who is white and in her late 50s could not get hired, but she was called in to rescue a DEI project, which ended up winning a slew of awards. The kid who had been handed the film had no experience. She says the budget was out of control and they were off partying every night. So the studio sent me to oversee things and get them back on track. But when the movie won awards, I wasn't allowed to go up on stage because they didn't want a middle-aged white woman standing in the middle of the young African-American cast members. I was told it wasn't good optics.
That's bullshit. Because especially if the other people because what's going to happen is that those people are going to get more projects and she won't. They'll get more projects because of her work because they dropped the ball and didn't do their job. If true, they dropped their ball and didn't do the job. And now they're going to get awards and they're going to get, all the credit, and they're going to get more gigs. And this woman who saved everything and made it work will get nothing.
It's not the only story. Here's another one. A male writer who's 60 tells a similar story. He worked on some of the most successful shows ever made. He says, when DEI started, my phone stopped ringing. Then it started ringing again with big names at the studios asking me to take a look at scripts and rewrite them. Their DEI hires couldn't actually do the job. So they had old white men like me rewrite things. The money was good, but I couldn't get any credit. That's the hypocrisy of Hollywood.
Yeah, because they're going to keep giving these people credit. And what happens is those people could get in jobs.
So let's go back to the Wayback Machine. It's been about 7 years now. She-Ra. Yeah. The new Netflix She-Ra show. When they promoted this show, all you saw were a diverse group of white women.
Oh, you mean the other women? When you saw them, because mostly it was about Andy Stevenson and all the stuff that Stevenson had done. And
right.
It was mostly this PR, rollout for Stevenson.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. They handed, it was Noel at the time, N.D. Stevenson. They handed Stevenson the keys to a classic IP at like 23, 24 years old. And prior to that, the only experience they had was a graphic novel or two and a couple of like stints writing for other shows. No show running experience. And as the story goes, they had to bring Chuck Austin in to basically act as the shadow showrunner, but without the credit. And they didn't want it getting out there that this middle-aged man had to be brought in to fix the show.
Well, that's kind of why the second season was better than the first one.
Yes, the first couple episodes were really rough, and then it got better as it went on because they brought Chuck Austin in, who had decades of experience working in animation, to fix it. And he actually said in an interview he really didn't want the credit, but every time you saw pictures, it was just Stevenson and the all-girl squad, best friends squad, in their matching pink jackets, talking about how they were going to take animation by storm.
Pretty much. And this keeps happening. We keep hearing story after story about this. And it's bullshit because what happens is, unless the studio executives remember this and talk amongst themselves, to everybody else, it looks like they were the geniuses behind it. They made what a great show. They did all the work. They made it work. Look at them. Except that isn't necessarily the case.
Yeah. So now they're talking about how the anti-whack, yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Anti-woke backlash is in full swing. So Mel Gibson, a director who was famously canceled for drunkenly spewing anti-Semitic slurs, announced he'll be filming a long-awaited follow-up to The Passion of the Christ in Italy this summer. How do you do a sequel to The Passion of the Christ?
I don't know.
Somehow Jesus has returned. I mean, I just like,
well,
it's called the Book of Revelation. Is that what we're doing?
I don't know.
It's like, I don't know.
Is it like following them as they went out and preached about Jesus and wrote the Bible and stuff? I don't know. Go ahead. What are you gonna say next?
Well, no, it's funny because look at who Trump is putting in as the ambassadors to Hollywood, and it's guys like Gibson and Stallone and conservatives who basically were blacklisted from Hollywood. Now, I don't agree with Gibson's drunken rant, but people have done worse. At least he didn't go to the Diddy party.
Yeah.
So it's like, but beyond that, like they're putting in the old guard, and they're I mean, hell, how many times have they dragged Harrison Ford out of retirement or pseudo retirement to bring his characters back, because they know that's what people want. They know it's what makes money, but wasn't fashionable. And I think what's going to happen now, here's the thing. If you basically got blacklisted for 4 or 5 years because you weren't the right kind of person, when your phone starts ringing again, do you pick it up or you tell them to go fuck themselves?
Yeah, well, apparently they pick it up because they want money.
Apparently they're picking it up.
But they go on here talking about, like, in the mood in Hollywood, he wasn't conducive to movie about faith in God under Biden. Right. And they're waking up to the fact the mood has changed. To talk about Win or Lose. Yeah, Win or Lose. I didn't see the episode of the transgender character that they kind of walked it back. But honestly, I don't think that the show is that bad. What I saw of it was actually pretty good. The Disney executive who spoke to Daily Mail privately admitted that this was a direct result of the anti-DEI backlash for the transgender character, I'm assuming. The studio put out a statement in December saying, "We recognize that many parents would prefer to discuss certain subjects with their children on their own terms and timeline," which that came out publicly. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't surprising. We knew they said that already.
Yeah. And I think whatever they could, and it's kind of like with Inside Out too, whatever they could fix it. They talk about fixing it in post and editing. Whatever they could fix in post, they did. But there are some projects that are too far along in the production cycle that they can't fix. There's nothing they can do. So they just put them out there, be like, "Yeah, look, Snow White, everybody. Oh yeah, you hate."
Well, this is interesting too. Amazon had The Apprentice mothballed, and they started putting the episodes back up
as if by magic. Everything changes. That's what I was talking about. Those executives and stuff at the inauguration, they were all like anti-Trump, anti-Trump, anti-Trump. And suddenly they love the Trump. We love Trump now. Mm-hmm. Right? Oh, look how young he looks. We used to watch The Apprentice all the time. And I remember when they said that he was going to run for president, I'm like, oh, hell no. The guy from reality TV, there's no way he's going to run for president. This is a joke, right? This is a stunt. No.
Oh, wait, it gets better. A&E brought back Duck Dynasty.
I didn't know they got rid of Duck Dynasty.
Apparently having a beard makes you like, being Duck Dynasty, because they had Christian values.
Redneck is back in vogue. No, they did. Wait. They actually tried to purge it for a while.
They're admitting, though, that if anything had a Christian value to it, or Christianity to it at all, they deliberately excluded it. Because here's what makes you mad. They're saying they deem Christian values exclusionary. They keep saying this. And what pisses me off about it is I can tell you that there are some other religions that are far, 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 far less accepting of different kinds of people than Christians. But those ones they support and back at all turns. And I'm just like, if you have a problem with religion and not being accepting, then why are you accepting of this group and not this group? You know what I mean?
But what's weird, I mean, going back to the Disney show, what the hell is it called?
Win or Lose.
Win or Lose. Yeah, I couldn't remember. I kept wanting to say win, lose, or draw.
It's not called win. It's not called what the hell is it called? It's called
What the hell is it called? What the hell is the name of the show? The baseball show. We watched a couple episodes of it. I'm like, yeah, it's cute, whatever. No, the first episode starts with the main character of that episode praying to God.
Yeah, but I have to admit, there's like saying, they left that in and took the transgender storyline out, and I can kind of see what their argument is, because if you're like saying that, you have to monitor what's in it, and Disney made that big point of saying they couldn't put Dr. Facilier and Tiana's Bio Adventure because they don't want to tie religion into it, and then they do that. It's kind of like, wait a minute, There's you have double standard here, but they always had double standard. You're just mad that's going the other way.
Well, they had a bunch of activists basically whispering in their ears too and telling them like, no, this is the way you go because this is this new audience. Like, yeah, that new audience you chase, they don't buy shit. A lot of them are broke. A lot of them outright hate money. But sure, double down on chasing that audience. And in the case of Disney, all those families that spend thousands and thousands of dollars a year going to your theme parks and buying your merchandise, whatever. Yeah, tell them to go get bent and chase after these wokesters and see what happens. And this is what happened. They're like, oh my God, we're gonna hit the iceberg. No, they already hit the iceberg. So now they just got to try to patch up the hole before the ship sinks. And I don't think it's gonna work. I think some of these companies are gonna go down, and we're gonna look back at it in 10, 15 years and be like, yeah, well, here's the exact point where they hit the iceberg. Mm-hmm. It was when they doubled down on far left politics and then told the rest of their existing customers to go get bent.
Yeah, we just have to go back to the middle. I mean, you can like you can have Duck Dynasty on the air, but you can also have other shows on the air that maybe lean a little left.
RuPaul's Drag.
Yeah, but that was on there for years and no one cared. You know what I mean?
I don't even know the name of that show.
Drag Race. It's Drag
Race. Thank you.
But it's on the air for years and nobody gave a shit. You know what I'm saying? It's like it didn't bother anybody. You watched if you wanted to. You didn't watch if you didn't want to.
You can tell I watch it every week. Right?
Yeah.
RuPaul's Drag.
Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. All that stuff. Nobody cared. If you wanted to watch it, you did. If you didn't watch it, you didn't. If you wanted to go watch, reruns of Touched by an Angel, then you were allowed to do it. If you wanted to go watch Duck Dynasty, you were allowed to do it. Didn't make you a bad person. It just meant you were different taste, and it was something for everyone, and nobody cared. It wasn't until like a few years ago, like 10 years ago or so, that you got these activists who were like, I just invented diversity and inclusion, even though you didn't, ruining it for everyone. And it's about time you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Like hell you can't. You can stuff that bitch right back in. And then put a cork in it and hammer that cork and then dip it in cement and then say, don't touch it.
Don't be touched by an angel.
Don't be touched by the genie in the bottle. Never mind.
The genie.
Let everybody like what they like.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's always been something for everyone on TV, even going back 20, 30, 40 years, and well, maybe not for everyone, but there's been diversity in entertainment, and you just watch the shows you want to watch. You don't watch shows you don't want to watch, but the thing is they took shows that were basically, it was like this parasitic thing going on where they would take a show that was much, much more popular because it had a large audience, and then they would attach the activism to it and they would try to change the audience.
Right. For modern audiences. And it doesn't work.
Right. It doesn't work. And then all that happens is you burn down a viable IP, because those IPs, Star Wars and Marvel and Star Trek and Doctor Who, all that stuff, if it's successful and it's consistently successful, then you can bankroll more niche projects.
Here's my thing about that. If you had Star Wars, for example, was popular for decades. So you're talking like many new audiences that came into Star Wars. They had kids, their kids saw it, whatever, even up to, the prequels and stuff. But you had at least in the 70s, you might have grew up and your kids in the 90s might have seen, the Star Wars and liked it again. So it was perennially, resonating with people as is. Okay. You didn't need to change it for modern audiences because it already had something about it that everybody loved. And it didn't matter what generation you were. It just kept, snowballing with people. You didn't need to update it for modern audiences. You could have just kept making stuff in the same vein and it would have automatically attracted an audience and the same kind of audience you wanted.
I think this is going to end out of necessity. I mean, we're going to have people that are going to bitch bitterly about it at studios, but I think a lot of these people, it's going to be self-correcting. They're going to get gone because they didn't perform. And that's the excuse they're going to use. They're going to be like,
at the end of the day, they only care about money. And we've told you this repeatedly.
Yeah. So there we go. We got to wrap this up.
Yes.
Another damn Snow White video, but not actually. We did.
Yes and no.
Stuff. Yes and no. So anyway, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.